All right, we're officially in the first day of summer, so good afternoon and happy summer. I'm Kristen Lucas, Chief Marketing Officer at Fairport and Luma Wealth, and as an English major, I am thrilled to be with you today to talk books for summer. For housekeeping purposes, let's keep our cameras on if you're comfortable. If you're not eating lunch, if you're eating lunch, go for it. And we'll keep muted. If you have anything, any questions for Elizabeth, put them in the chats and there'll be little breaks where she will look and be able to reply. So a bit of background, I realize there's many players involved in today's event. So some background kudos and intros before we dive in. As you may or may not know, Fairport chooses one organization annually, and we call it our community beacon, and we funnel all of our time, talent, and treasure to that one organization. We think it's the most, it's the way to be the most impactful. So this year we're shining our light on children's literacy and specifically the Cleveland Kids Book Bank. Since their founding in 2016, which was not long ago, the Cleveland Kids Book Bank distributed more than 4 million books in Greater Cleveland, reaching 100,000 children annually through more than 1,500 partner organizations. And this operation is really fueled by volunteers. More than 8,000 volunteers from all walks of life volunteer to help sort and box the books. And most of our Fairport team has visited and/or volunteered. And this weekend, I'm happy to say that we're doing it with our families and kids. So I will be there this Saturday with some little friends to introduce them to the book bank. So in an effort to find some fun and creative ways to support the book bank, we reached out to Loganberry Books, a real true advocate and friend for the Kids Book Bank, and they were eager to help, which is why we're here today. If you haven't ever been to Loganberry, it's an independently owned and operated bookstore in the historic Larchmere neighborhood of Cleveland. It is dreamy. It is a book lover's paradise. There's like 100,000 books, the rolling book ladders like you're in Beauty and the Beast, and a beautiful fine mural on the outside wall. It's just really spectacular. And they're not only sharing their wisdom with us today, they're donating 10% of all book website purchases for the next 24 hours to the Cleveland Kids Book Bank. So thank you so much, Loganberry. You guys are awesome partners. And the Fairport team, our leadership team will match donations up to $500. So that is really from now to tomorrow at noon. So without further ado, meet our guest speaker, Elizabeth Plumley Watson in purple. She began working at Loganberry while home from Vassar College on her summer break in 2007. It was this introduction to book business that sent her off on an almost 10-year career in book publishing after graduating and moving to New York City. She moved back to Cleveland with her wife in 2017 and is thrilled to return to her book-selling roots. She also works as editor-at-large for the small independent publisher, The Experiment, and as a consultant to international publishers. Thank you, Elizabeth, for joining us today. So tell us what we should read this summer.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. And I just wanted to give a heads up that certainly these books that I talk about today will all be available for purchase. And my friends over at Fairport are going to put links in the chat as I talk. So you can go, you can read more about them. You can just go ahead and purchase now, but you also can browse the whole website. Anything that's up on the website that's a new book, because we have used and new books there. But anything that you browse on the website today, you buy new in the next 24 hours, 10% of that is going to go to Kids Book Bank, which is such a wonderful cause that we're so thrilled to get to support. So let's dive right in. I'm going to start, we're dividing into 3 sections. I'm going to start with kids books. And the first one I'm starting with is some YA. And this actually just came out yesterday. So I'm very excited. It was just like right in the nick of time to bring and talk to you about today. It's called You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Barron, who has written a lot of great middle grade and teen books. But this one in particular is a really fun, smart send up of slasher films. And I don't even like slasher films. And I loved this book. So I think that probably goes a long way to telling you that it is accessible to anyone. I'm also not a teenager, and I loved this book. It follows protagonist Charity, who is working at a really terrifying sounding sort of like escape room kind of camp, except participants get to live through a slasher film. But it's also a deeper meditation on the whole idea of the final girl, which, if you don't know, the final girl is, of course, the last girl who the slasher is coming after at the end of a horror film. I don't watch horror films, that's all I know, but also about the way that looking more at the idea of the way that Black people, that queer people, that young women are objectified in the pursuit of a fun story. And the protagonist, who is a young queer Black girl, really takes these on, but it's an absolute page turner. It's funny and fun. I highly recommend it. Let's move on to middle grade. And if you don't know, so teen books, publishers generally target teen books at readers 13 and older. This one is Root Magic. It's a middle grade book. It's Root Magic by Eden Royce, Dr. Eden Royce. This is her debut. She has a new one coming out in just a few weeks, but this one is out in paperback. And this is for readers, this one in particular, ages 8 to about 12, 13. And it follows two siblings, Jez and Jay, who live in South Carolina, and it's set in 1963. And they are from a Gullah background. So I don't know if you know if the term Gullah Geechee is familiar, a particular cultural and actually ethnic subgroup in the islands around South Carolina of free Black people going back, and Indigenous people going back hundreds of years, who have their own linguistic traditions, their own culinary and weaving traditions they're very famous for. But this is a fun fantasy set in the heat of school integration, and Jez and Jay are off for the summer, and they find out that one of their elderly relatives are actually root workers, and participate, sort of have a traditional cultural background of magic and healing, and they are inducted. So it's almost like a magical school, narrative, but without the school, which makes it even more fun. Set in summer, really, kids get a lot about history here, but there's also just peril and adventure and magic and page turning. It's a standalone. It's in paperback. It's wonderful. Then, if you have a rather maybe a reluctant reader in your life, I'm going to recommend the Tea Dragon Festival, also Tea Dragon Society, but Tea Dragon Festival is the one I have with me today, which is a graphic novel. Graphic novels are a great tool if you have really a person of any age in your life who just feels overwhelmed by a wall of words. Maybe they're neurodivergent and have trouble sitting through a long book, or dyslexic, and a wall of words is hard to deal with. Maybe they just, like pretty much any of us, love pretty pictures, and this one has pretty pictures galore. And there's several books in this series, is a loose word. They all stand alone, can all be read in any order. They're fantasy, wonderful families. This one has a lot. The character Rin in this one is really eager to become a chef. I'm remembering it as chef. I don't remember, because there's lots of foraging. There's lots of sort of hunting for mushrooms in the woods and herbs to get ready for the festival in this magical world filled with tea dragons, yes, but lots of other magical creatures. And it's a little hard to show on the Zoom, but there are entire spreads that are just beautiful pictures to look at. So truly wonderful to share with anyone in your life who just maybe needs a break from words, but still wants books. And it's heartwarming. There's great community. There's great chosen family helping each other out. These are beautiful books. Paperback, really light and accessible, good to bring on a car trip. I love these. And then I have two, and I have a book to show for almost everything I'm talking about today, but I realized that I left the store yesterday without, so I have 2 picture books. So the first one I have in hand, and which is wonderful because it's so gorgeous. So this book is called A Shell is Cozy. And it's from a series by this team of author, illustrator that do fabulous nonfiction nature books for kids, Diana Hutz, Aston, and Sylvia Long. And this is the newest entry, perfect in time for summer and for beach season. And I know that the image quality is not going to be great if I just hold it up to the screen, but they're these beautiful watercolors. Honestly, even if you don't have children in your life and you love seashells, or you have someone in your life who's really into natural history and loves shells, I've given these books. There's A Seed is Cozy. There is A Butterfly is Sleepy. Maybe it's A Seed is Sleepy and a butterfly is a nest. A seed is sleepy. That's what it is. A nest is noisy. There's a different book for pretty much anything about natural history that you might want. And these are so fun. It's not a storybook, but the pictures are so gorgeous, and the size is nice and big, so you can spread it out with kids. Some of the spreads almost have like an I Spy like quality to it. I don't know if anyone remembers those books from childhood. You can sit, even with kids that are too little to, be able to really take in what is a mollusk. You can sit down and look for all the blue shells, or, where's the pointy shells? And these are just gorgeous. And the next one, which I'm so sorry, I walked out of the store without yesterday, but is another favorite picture book of summer that we're going to put the link in the chat for, is just called Hot Dog. And Hot Dog won the Caldecott Prize this last year, which is the highest honor awarded to any picture book published in the United States, by the ALA, which is American Librarians Association. I'm going to say I always just think of it as the ALA. And it's a story about a little dachshund going to the beach on a hot New York summer day. And as someone who spent hot summers in New York for a lot of time, I can say this book is exactly what summer in New York feels like. And it's about the long journey out to the beach. It's even just a good picture book to get ready for if you're taking some little ones on a long trip for the first time, to talk about how sometimes it can feel like it's going to take forever to get there, but then you do, and it's wonderful. You get popsicles, you get hot dogs, and you get to maybe even swim in the sea, which the little dog does. And that's Hot Dog by Doug Salati, which is in the chat. So that's it for kids books I've got right now. Are there any questions specifically about children's books, either these here or anything else before I move along? I'm just going to look in the chat to see. Not seeing anything. And you are allowed to remember something later that you wanted to put in. I'll pause at the end too and get to others. So moving on to adult fiction, my top pick for all kinds of readers for the summer is Portrait of a Thief by Grace D. Lee. And this has really a little bit of something for everyone. Really smart, really fun, really page turning. And it's a heist novel, which once again, kind of like with You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight, I guess I probably watch more heist films than I do slasher films, but it's still not like a great consumer of them, and love this book. It's got everything that you would hope for from the best heist movie or book, which, a team of genius misfits who kind of don't, have maybe succeeded in some areas of life, but obviously if they're taking on a heist, maybe things haven't been going top notch for them in whatever area of career they've chosen. And Will Chen is our main protagonist, but there's a wonderful, just for like friend group dynamics, it's great. And it's all set around the world of Asian antiquities in museums in North America and Europe, many of them questionably acquired by those institutions. And the heist group of friends with their cool technology and their fast cars are all Asian Americans who have become critical or wise, perhaps is the better word, to the way that these artifacts and treasures have been acquired, and they are out to help liberate them. So fun and hijinks ensues. Good slow burn romance going on in the pages and a couple layers without it being, it's not a bodice ripper. So I'm not going to sell it to you as like, if what you really want is just romance. But it's super smart, really well written, great to take to the beach. I sold a lot of copies in preparation for Father's Day. Great gift for dads. Maybe your dad didn't get what he wanted for Father's Day. This is a good thing. Next on my list is I Capture the Castle, which came out in the 30s, I want to say. So this book is going on 100 years old and is still one of my top favorite crowd-pleasing novels. I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. Dodie Smith, most famous for writing 101 Dalmatians. If you didn't know, it was a book. It was a book first, as many movies. But I Capture the Castle is and I realized as I was going through this stack that actually a lot of books in these categories are all wonderful sibling stories. So Root Magic is a great sibling story. I Capture the Castle is one of the most fabulous family dramas. So hilarious. I still think about I probably read this book 3 times. I read it first when I was 17, probably. It's a great book. I sell it to a lot of older teenagers. And the unforgettable narrator, Cassandra Morton, lives in a family with a once famous novelist father who was sort of a one-hit wonder. He was the greatest novelist of his generation, and then he kind of got writer's block, or maybe it was just fear of ever doing anything less than he once did. And the family's getting poorer and poorer and poorer, and she lives with her stepmother, also best stepmother in fiction. Stepmother Topaz is what everyone wishes even their mom would be, let alone their stepmom. She's young, she's fun, she's cool. And it's across the space of one summer, but kind of the climax of the book takes place on the summer solstice. It's about young love. Cassandra wants to be a writer. It's about coming of age as, realizing maybe what you want to do with your life. It's just such a treat of a book. I can't recommend it highly enough, especially for a comfort read that you want to still have some depth to it. So that I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith, highly recommended. Next, and this is all about romance, so kind of a different way than a classic romance novel. This is Mr. Loverman, which is such a good title. And this is a book by Bernadine Evaristo, who became really famous for Girl, Woman, Other, which was her Booker Prize winning? Yeah, it was the Booker Prize winning novel several years back. But Mr. Loverman, she wrote at least 10, if not 15 years ago. And Mr. Loverman is about Barrington Jedediah Walker. And this is a romantic story featuring someone in their 70s, which there are some out there, but there aren't enough. And Barrington grew up in Antigua, but has been living most of his life in London, in the Caribbean community there, with his one true love, who is Morris, and is a man. And he and Morris have been together for like 50 years. Their wives don't know about it. And they're about to turn 75, and Barry and Morris decide it's time to do something about that. And it's very funny, but it's also really honest about the ways that being closeted hurts not just the people who are closeted, but whole communities, and about why, even though it's never too late to embrace more of your truth, there are consequences. But it's a warm, funny, Barry, it's a first person narrative. Barry has a really unforgettable voice on the page. And it's a really great summer read. Next, another book that I've read at least 3 times, recommend still every summer, if for no other reason than this cover. And this cover is why I bought it in the first place more than 10 years ago now. This is Finn and Lady by Kathleen Shine. And actually most of Kathleen Shine's books would make a fabulous, smart beach read. This one is my favorite. It is another fabulous sibling drama about little brother Finn and his older half-sister Lady, who is like 20 years older than him. And it is set in 1960s Greenwich Village. So 1960s Greenwich Village and 1960s Capri, the Isle of Capri off of Italy. So it's like dreamy, dreamy locations, just like so redolent of a moment, sort of just, you know, it's 1964. So it's just entering that time of like when the 60s really get swinging. I obviously don't speak from experience, but on the page and in history, the 60s really get swinging. Finn is left orphaned and has to go live with big sister Lady, and her sassy single life gets a little less sassy, but a lot sweeter. And it's about their adventures together. Really smart and funny. And there's even sort of there's a fabulous twist, a fabulous sibling twist surprise that is only revealed more than halfway through, that I'm not going to give it away to you, but it's a wonderful read. If you have siblings in your life that you like to read with, highly recommended to read Finn and Lady. And then this one is another one that we sold the last copy. I've been selling so many of these before I walked out the door of the store yesterday. The Mountain in the Sea. And if you click on the link that's going to go up here and you look at the cover and go, oh, fair warning, the cover, the paperback cover with a pink octopus on it, like that kind of actually looks like a Cthulhu monster. It doesn't just look like an octopus. I think it looks like a scary octopus. Is not selling this book, isn't doing it any favors. It is one of the best novels I read last year. I think my favorite new novel that came out last year. And it's a book about octopuses, but it's also sci-fi. If you have so this is like for the real, it will satisfy a hard sci-fi reader. I think there's a lot about AI. I'm not a hard sci-fi reader, and I loved this book. I would pitch it as, if you read Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, it has a lot of that element of a world very similar to ours, but later somehow, with these disparate characters who are all woven in together as the book goes on, but even deeper and asking bigger questions, but with the same page turning propulsive narrative quality as Station 11. And if you're interested in, it's great. If you're interested in robots and or octopuses, you'll love this book. If you think that you really could not care less about robots and or octopuses, you will love this book. The author is a marine biologist, but also has a background in international diplomacy and relations. It's a lot about a global world where AI is on the rise and what makes us self and who are we. It's about a world where, in climate crisis with rising sea levels, it's about who are we in community with, and what makes community. So that's my last fiction pick. And I'm going to go over to the chat just to see, love to see that I see a comment that I Capture the Castle is an all-time favorite. And yes, a really good question from Miranda about audiobooks. I'm going to get to the end we'll go through nonfiction, and then I'll put a link for our Libro FM store. So we don't have control over the Libro FM store, so we can't donate a portion of sales from that. But there is an alternative to Audible, if you're not aware, because summertime is a great audiobooks time, whether you're in the car or maybe you're out working in the garden, maybe you're going on a long hike, and don't want to listen to the voice, the voice of anxiety inside your head. Audiobooks can be a really great pick, and there's a way to support your local bookstore with audiobook picks. And I think that probably most of these are available as audiobooks through Libro, which I will put a link at the end. And you can sign up you can do one-offs, same as Audible, or you can sign up for a subscription, same as you would through Audible. Also, just a shout out to our local libraries, the Cleveland, I don't know, we're probably not all in the Cleveland library system, but even if you're not in the Cleveland library system, Libby is a system used by most public libraries in the US, has really fabulous interface for free digital audiobooks. I listen to so many Libby audiobooks every month. I'm so thankful for them. So definitely check that out at your local library also. All right, let's dive into, I think I got any and all comments or questions. Let's dive into nonfiction. And so this is one, I also sold the last book before I could grab it off the table at the store yesterday, but I'm going to put a link in the chat that this is from the publisher to look inside it, because this book is really, it's not all about the visuals. The first time I read it, I just got a preview manuscript from the publisher, no illustrations whatsoever. And I was absolutely hooked, but you'll be even more hooked if you just get a preview of what it looks like inside. So this is the Bathysphere book by Brad Fox. Just came out earlier this year. A gorgeous, it's a gorgeous, immersive, if you'll forgive the pun, book about deep sea exploration and the history, the really early history of deep sea exploration, but also a history of what humans have thought about what might be at the bottom of the ocean from long before we ever had technology to actually go there and see. You'll see if you click on the link to the web store, the cover of the book has one of those really scary deep sea monster type fish that are just like hard to even imagine on a surface level life. And this is, it's an intertwined narrative. So this is, but there's also, I think, a really propulsive page turning quality to it, because you're reading the true story of these scientists trying to engineer a bathysphere, this instrument for deep sea exploration. And it's a undertaking not without great peril. And you're reading about what's going into that and about their different explorations. But the author also does a really good job. Brad Fox also does a really good job. You get to see snippets of the diary. So I feel like there's this secret, almost like eavesdroppy quality to it, because it's so highly illustrated with scraps of letters. And I don't know if anyone remembers those. There was those books that were really popular about 20 years ago, Griffin and Zabina, by Nick Bantock, that had all of these, like, you'd open them up, kind of like the Jolly Little Postman from even further back, where you'd open up and you could pull the tiny little letters out or see, photographs or postcards that were sent. And this book has that quality, and it's real, which is amazing. And you learn about science, you learn about adventure, you learn about the very real human complexities of sort of scientific conquest, about the women and the not white people who were left behind, or even worse, in the pursuit of science. Wonderful writing about color and about an evocation of what is it like to go to the bottom of the world. And it's a really beautiful book that I highly recommend. And I'm sorry, I don't have one to hold up and show to you. So the next one is a page-turning memoir called 1,000 Ways to Pay Attention. And I confess that I am the editor of this book, but it's still, I've had such wonderful feedback from so many customers. It was one of our top 10 bestsellers at the store at Loganberry last year. And one that I've gotten to have conversations with a lot of different people about, and a really good comparison to 1,000 Ways to Pay Attention. So the subtitle is Discovering the Beauty of My ADHD Mind. What 1,000 Ways to Pay Attention is it really takes place across about a year on a small farm in the English countryside. The author, Rebecca Schiller, moves there with her family, and things sort of start to fall apart. So it's this it seems like it's going to be a medical mystery, maybe. I don't know if anyone read or remembered, maybe even saw the show Brain on Fire by Susanna Callahan, of this, like, what's going wrong? Why is everything suddenly falling apart? There's this mysterious element as you page through, and then sort of travel with Rebecca to her eventual diagnosis with severe ADHD at the age of 35, I think. She receives her diagnosis, and it sort of blows open her understanding of the world. There's gorgeous nature writing in here, which it's worth that price of entry alone for that. But it's also just a wonderful, true story about coming to know yourself, about the pressures on women to not become themselves, to not know themselves if they're at odds with the use of their families and their jobs and the roles they feel they're supposed to play And it's in paperback now. So a wonderful pick to share. Maybe you have someone in your life who, there are so many people post-pandemic learning in adulthood about finding out that they're neurodivergent. And it's a wonderful, books can be a wonderful way to create community in that way. Let's see, we've got my garden book next, another book that I've read so many times. So summer, I feel like really lends itself. So this is My Garden Book by Jamaica Kincaid, came out, I think in 1994. So it's been out for several decades now, whether I know it seems crazy that 1994 is, you could say, several decades ago, but true. And I think summer is a great time both for the kind of books that are just totally suck you in, page turners, where you can just like give an afternoon to just diving in and being totally consumed. But summer's also a really good time for books for distracted people. Maybe your kids are home from school. Maybe your schedule has changed because you have a rhythm that goes through the rest of the year, and it's just really hard to get into something. Maybe you're just sitting outside. If you're like me, you're sitting outside in your garden and you look up every 10 minutes and see a weed that you have to stand up and go get. And I think a book that you can really dip in and out of at random is wonderful for that. A book you can take on a picnic and fall asleep reading and not just totally lose track. And My Garden Book is a collection of essays about the garden, about what it means to be human, who loves to garden, who wants to garden, who's frustrated by gardening. Jamaica Kincaid, and what makes it really special is Jamaica Kincaid is one of the great, I would argue, I'm a huge Jamaica Kincaid mega fan, a great novelist of mostly of the last quarter of the 20th century. She hasn't written a novel in a number of years, but she has an incredibly distinctive voice. She is Caribbean by birth, in young adulthood moved to the United States and has taught at various Ivy League institutions throughout the course of her career. But almost all of her books are, I think maybe I can confidently say all of them are under 200 pages long. So all of them are bite-size, dip into, dip out of. No one writes garden rage the way Jamaica Kincaid writes garden rage, which I appreciate about her so much. This is not a flowery idyll. This is about the ugly feelings that can come up in us when a woodchuck eats the last tomato of the season. But so funny, laugh out loud funny, also really smart, will make you look at your garden in ways you probably haven't before. And that can be a wonderful thing for something that's so familiar. Then my last pick for the day, with similar quality, you can dip into and out of. I read Blue, The Science and Secrets of Nature's Rarest Color by Kai Kupferschmidt. And I'm going to want to tell you who translated it, because it's really important to give translators full credit. Translated from the German by Mike Mitchell. And as far as paperbacks go, this is one of the most beautifully produced, just like pretty books, paperback books to flip through. And this is kind of what it says on the cover, and as it would appear throughout, just all about the human and more than human history and relationship to the color blue. The author is I think a microbiologist or a biochemist by training, and now a science journalist by profession. And blue is just kind of like it feels like a candy bowl of science and history facts. I learned so much from this book. You'll learn why the ocean looks blue sometimes and not others. You'll learn about why the blue of a blue jay's feathers is made in a completely different way from the blue of a cornflower in your garden. This is one, absolutely, if you're looking for a book that can kind of follow you through more distractions rather than one that can just suck you in. Or if you have a person in your life who just wants to read capital S serious books, but maybe could use something a little bit lighter and more fun, this happily bridges that gap. And that is the stack that I've got for you. I'm going to go and look in the chat right now. Oh, and then I was going to put Loganberry's Libro FM URL. I should have thought of this before, really. And in the meantime, while I'm furiously tapping away here, if anyone has any other questions that they want to put in the chat, here we go. So here's that. You can go and any subscriptions or just one-off purchases, a small portion of those sales go to Loganberry. Oh, here we go. Let's see. I had that on the wrong setting. Here we go. Ta-da! There. That should go to everyone. And thank you so much for coming, all for coming today. And I tried to cover a wide variety of recommendations, obviously. Oh, here's a question. Any great chapter book recommendations for a third grader? So if the third grader is a really pretty confident reader on their own, I really love the Lumberjanes series. That's a really great also summary feeling series. And there are actually Lumberjanes books at various levels. There's the graphic novels, but also just more like straightforward storybooks. And they're all set in a summer camp setting, sort of like a Girl Scouts-esque setting with wild hijinks and friendship stuff, which is great. We've got a recommendation from Heather for Brandon Sanderson, Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians series is hilarious. If you have a third grader who's a little bit more of a reluctant reader, or just maybe just because they feel overwhelmed by so many words on a page, all of Terry Liebenson, who's a local Cleveland author, she has a great graphic novels. She has lots of graphic novels, most of which I'm just going to write how she spells her name, Terry Liebenson. And you can search her on our web store. And I checked yesterday and we definitely have several of her things there. Those are graphic novels about just like the sort of school stories with a twist. And I had one other thought. Oh, I love the Inspector Flytrap books, also more for maybe a reluctant reader. Those are by Tom Engelberger. And you can tell I just say the title and I laugh about them. They're ridiculously silly. They're kind of in terms of absurdist silliness, they're kind of almost in the like Captain Underpants realm, except our hero is a private inspector who is a Venus flytrap, because why not? And his sidekick is a goat. And that can be a problem because sometimes goats eat evidence, as you will learn if you read the Inspector Flytrap books. Yeah, and if you think of, we at Loganberry, there are lots of good subcategories. If you're just looking at the website today and want to buy something to support Book Bank today, lots of good subcategories on the sidebar of the website. We have, but what's on the website is a small portion. I tried to put lots of new stuff up there over the past few days, so you'd have even more to choose from. But we do have about 140,000 volumes in the store total. We have antiquarian books, we have used books, we have new books. We've really got it all. So I hope that even if you aren't making a purchase today and want to just come and browse sometime, that you'll be able to make it, because it's a great place to be. And we will happily tailor summer book recommendations. Any of my book selling colleagues and I would just happily tailor reading recommendations to your most precise needs. You can say that you have a 17-year-old who's only interested in football, but also sometimes likes reading sci-fi, and we will try to figure that out for you.
Elizabeth, one of your booksellers calculated, my daughter asked last time she was there, how many words are in the store. So someone knew on average how many words are in books times like 100,000 and figured it out for her.
That's amazing. That's actually also I'm very impressed. I definitely have some colleagues who are really good math people. Some of us are booksellers precisely because we're not really good math people.
Me
And
too. That's why I'm the
I'm happy.
marketer at Fairport Wealth. Yeah.
Right.
Elizabeth,
And
thank you so
yeah,
much.
of course. And thank you so much to Kids Book Bank for the work that you guys do in our community. And thanks so much to Fairport for your help and helping us out to raise even more money for this really good cause.
Top new books now through tomorrow at noon.
Thanks so much, everyone.